Hey, this is Scotty Schwartz from the Toy and a Christmas Story, and you're watching Kendall Talks TV.
This is nuts. Suck.
What's up, guys? It's your host, Kendall Tucker, and today's guest got his start in the industry at a very young age. You know him as Flick in the popular movie A Christmas Story, or possibly Eric Bates in a hit movie, The Toy, starring Richard Pryor. He's been in several films after. Today's joining us. We have Scott Schwartz with us. How's it going, man?
It's going, brother.
How's adjusting to life with this whole COVID-19 thing?
You know, it's just I'm home more. You know, I'm used to traveling and seeing people and doing shows and, missing out on certain big conventions and stuff like that. So friendships that I've made with people around the country, you know, I don't get to break bread with them, have lunch or dinner or do that kind of stuff. And, listen, I'm probably one of the few people, I say it how it is, man. I'm filing for BK. I got no choice. It's not I was irresponsible. I made it for 2 or 3 months of this thing, and now we're just where we are.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to keep a positive outlook. I got my doggies. I got, family, friends, thank God, But this is not fun, man. But I'm one of those. I believe in going out and doing what you need to do.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. Now let's go ahead and jump into it. Of course, you're an actor. Is there anything else you do for a living, or anything you do on the side besides, acting?
I rep celebrities for memorabilia signings, autograph shows, that kind of stuff. I buy and sell sports and entertainment memorabilia. I sell on eBay and through different, websites or through different auction houses, stuff like that.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Now
I do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So you got your start at a very early age. Was it something that you knew you wanted to do so young, or was it something your parents kind of pushed you into doing?
Neither one. Absolutely neither one. I was attending a movie club with my father at the time. And I was the only kid there. When I started going, I was 5.5 years old. And the youngest member was like 26, 27. But I loved movies, so I could sit there didn't make any difference. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, didn't matter.
Yeah.
And after a couple of years, one of the other members, who was a much older guy, he was probably in his 50s at that point, he said, listen, you're very outgoing. I've known you for a while, and I'm producing a commercial down in Florida for Yoo-Hoo chocolate drink. I think you'd be great at it. You want to give this a shot? Talk to my dad. Okay, fine, whatever. And he's like, yeah, it's a Yoo-Hoo with Yogi Berra. And I was a baseball fanatic.
Oh, yeah.
And I was a New Jersey kid. I love the Yankees. So, sure. Okay, let's give it a shot. Did that. He recommended that I keep going and meet a casting agent. And then they introduced me to 2 agents. And then I just went from there.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So my next question was, what was your very first role as a kid? But it was the Yahoo, or you said what did you say it was? The Yoo-Hoo?
Yoo-Hoo chocolate drink was the very, very first commercial I did, yeah.
So what was the very first movie?
Well, the first movie is The Toy, which is 5 years later.
That was the very first movie.
Yeah, but I mean, I did off-Broadway, I did Broadway, I did over 100 commercials.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, there was a lot of work that was done before the movie thing happened.
So you did a ton of commercials before all that.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Now, A Christmas Story was huge. I mean, can you believe after all these years, it's still a Christmas classic that families love to watch? My wife's family has it playing on the TV Christmas Day every year. I believe one day out of the year it plays for 24 hours nonstop on television. What was that experience like on set of that movie?
Not as much fun as you would think. I mean, people have kind of said, oh, you did, and I mean, I did another film in between the two of them called Kidco down in Arizona. So The Toy was shot in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Kidco was shot in Tucson, Arizona. And Christmas Story is shot in Cleveland and up in Canada. So we got 90 degrees in Louisiana, we got 80 degrees in Arizona, and we got minus 20 in Canada.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to do other than, thank God, Both locations where I went, the hotel that we shot in Cleveland, there was a deli that was in the little center in Higbee Square, so to speak, where we shot the film, that had a Pac-Man machine. So thank God for that Pac-Man machine, because Peter and I spent, $50 a week playing video games. And then the hotel that we stayed in, a little town called St. Catharines, south of Toronto, it was a Howard Johnson Motor Lodge, and they had a little game room in there. So if not for video games, it would have just been, it was brutal. The weather, Cleveland was not good at all, and Canada was just frozen. You see an end product of, the infamous sticking the tongue in the flagpole.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, that must have been great. I'm like, oh, it was terrific. It was anywhere from 22 to 25 below zero with the wind chill.
Oh, wow.
There's no fun in that.
Wow.
But the guys made it fun. We had a fun group of guys, that we shot with.
Do you think the people involved in the movie realized it was going to be such a classic?
Do you realize what the lotto numbers are going to be?
Yeah, you're right about that.
Listen, this movie had everything going against it. Our director, Bob Clark, had done another small little movie called Porky's.
Mm-hmm.
And it went crazy, on a nothing budget. It was like, I think like a $1.5 million budget or something. It made over $100 million back then.
That's crazy.
So he had all the juice, he had all the power, and they wanted him to do Porky's too.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, no, I'm making this other movie first. And the weather benefited him to do it this way, because you can't shoot Porky's in the middle of wintertime.
Yeah.
So he said, I want to shoot Christmas Story first, and then I'll shoot Porky's too. MGM had no faith in the movie. They were going to shelve it and just put it on video. And Bob and Darren McGavin made sure that it got a theatrical release. And of course, it made back its money and then some. They made profit. Mm-hmm. And then it sat there for 13 years on home video and just built up this core group of fans. And due to Ted Turner buying MGM's library, it went into their package. Mm. And, it started playing on the marathon. And that really is what took it to that next level, that generational kind of thing. Grandpa and grandma love it because that's when they grew up. Their kids love it because their father and mother love it. And then the grandkids, they love it because mom and dad and grandpa and grandma love it.
Exactly.
And it's a wonderful film, and it's heartwarming, and it's a great relationship movie between a father and a son and all the stuff that goes in between, but none of us knew anything. This was a small movie, no big stars. It's not a Star Wars, it's not a blockbuster of any kind. It's not a franchise movie, Rocky, Rambo, whatever. Mm-hmm. So, to me, it was just another gig. It was fun. Yeah. The fun part was the guys. I shot my actual shooting time. I was working for 6 weeks, and I worked 1 day a week.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yep. But you can't go anywhere. It's not like you can shoot your 1 day and then fly home, go to school, do whatever. Insurance, you can't do that kind of stuff, So you're there, and I'm working 1 day a week. I got to put in my 3 hours of school, and that was it. And it's like if they were close by, I go over to the set, go hang out, go get some crew food, get some chowder from the truck, and hang out. Nice. The Higbee scene, again, at the beginning of the film in the square, our hotel was attached to it.
Oh, really?
So it was great because we just had to walk at the walkway, and I'm in Higbee's on the set.
Oh, nice.
So the Santa scene with the, coming down the slide and all that, I saw all that stuff because what else am I going to do? Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now, speaking of the cast and budgets and everything, when you're a child actor, do you get paid? I mean, if you have as many talking lines, as many, parts in a movie as an adult, do you get paid the same as an adult, or does the kids typically usually make a little bit less than, what
No,
an adult makes?
it really has nothing to do with that. It's just based on what you've done, experience. Do you bring anything to the project?
So age
I
is
mean,
not a factor.
I actually made more money per week than Peter Billingsley, than Ralphie.
Oh, really?
Absolutely, because the toy had already come out in the theaters.
Yeah, you had experience.
Kidco was in the hopper, had been finished, and so my experience gave me the reason to make the money I did.
Yeah.
Peter had done, I think he had done Dirt Bike Kid already. I think I could be wrong though, and he had done the TV thing. I think he did That's Incredible, or one of them he had done. He had co-hosted with several other people. But no, your being a kid doesn't come into play at all. I mean, let's face it. Home Alone, who made more money, Joe Pesci at the time or Macaulay Culkin?
Yeah.
Now the first one, it was probably Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
But by the second one, it's Macaulay Culkin because he's the star.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I was wondering if age played a factor or not. Now, the famous scene in the Christmas Story, you kind of already mentioned, your tongue getting stuck to the pole.
Okay, you're gonna have to say that one again. You froze on me. Sorry.
The famous scene in A Christmas Story, you getting your tongue stuck to the pole. How did that scene work? Tell us the story about that.
Well, there really is a real flagpole there, but they made a piece of plastic to put over it, so it's not metal. And they painted it to look rusty and all that. They put a little hole in it. They had to take my measurement so they could put the hole right. And the hole was basically the size of your pinky nail. There's a tube inside that went down into the snow, and in the snow they buried a motor, like a dirt devil, like a vacuum cleaner motor.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't hear it. It could run, but you couldn't hear it because it was buried.
Yeah.
And it was just, that was it. You're stuck.
That's funny.
Again, this is one of those funny offshoots of all of it that we don't think about.
Yeah.
They didn't think about it back then. Now they probably would think about it. We're getting ready to do it. And I said to Bob Clark, I said, how does this thing work? They turned the motor on, and Bob turned around and stuck his tongue to the pole. And then he just pulled off. He said, look, it's just a suction thing. Okay, fine. They never clean the pole. They can't clean the pole because it has to look rusty. And if they start cleaning it, some of the paint might come off.
Yeah, you didn't have to.
So they never cleaned it. And 5 minutes later, I'm sticking my tongue right exactly where Bob Clark was. Not good hygiene at all, but that's what it was.
Yeah, that's too funny. That is funny. Now, do you still talk to any of your castmates from the movie?
Oh, yeah.
Quite regular?
I talked to Zach, Scott Farkas, the bully.
Yeah.
I talked to him the most. Then Yano Anaya, who played Grover Dill, the other bully. Ian Petrella, who played Randy. I talked to him a little bit. I talked to Peter. Not as much as I would like, but he's much busier than I am. So that's what that is. You get family and work and all that.
Yeah.
And then RD, who played Schwartz, the kid who triple dog dares me. I talked to him once in a while. Realistically, and I know this is going to sound funny, but the person I really talked, beside Zach, the person I talked to the most is Teddy Moore, who played Miss Shields, our wonderful teacher.
Oh, really? She
is just a beloved friend. I still call her Teach to this day. Hey, Teach, how you doing? Cool. She lives up in Toronto, and she is just a spectacular woman.
That's awesome. Now, let's talk about the other roles, unless it was this role. What was your favorite role to date, and why?
Oh, the role I did in Kidco, no question. The role of Dickie Cessna. That was the way I equate it is Lucas with Corey Haim. Mm-hmm. He's the star, and it made him whatever. Kidco, I think, would have done that for me had it gotten a national release, but it didn't because that's a whole different story. But it's the one I'm most proud of. I'm in 99% of the film, 98% of the film. Yeah. I worked 6 days a week. I was working between 11 and 13, 14 hours a day, you know,
Wow.
and it's my most proud film. Now, I mean, of course, people love The Toy because of Richard Pryor and Jackie Gleason, and you know, that was the most fun I had on a set. You know, they made it great and they made it fun. You know, having Richard Donner as our director of, you know, he did Goonies, he did Superman, The Omen, the Lethal Weapon series, you know.
Yeah, legend.
They all made it great. I mean, I had a blast on that set.
Now,
You
how
know,
old were you?
I still talk to Teresa Ganzel, who played Fancy Bates. She's still one of my very, very good friends.
Oh, nice. How old were you when you shot that movie?
I turned 14 while we were shooting.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, I didn't really understand a lot of the jokes that were said around the set.
Yeah.
You know, but I just kind of laughed and said, "Ah, that's funny." And I didn't know what the hell they were talking about, but you just go along with it, you know?
Yeah, I hear you, man. Do you think it was hard for you as a child growing up in the spotlight, not exactly living the normal kid life?
For me, not really. Again, different time. And I will say that several times because that's just what this is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did the film in, you know, 82. It comes out the end of 82. There's no TMZ. There's no Access Hollywoods. There's no internet. There's no podcast. There's no, you know, nobody's chasing you down.
Yeah.
You know, I could still go to a mall. You know, I could go to the movies. I could go out to dinner with my family. Did people come up and say, "Hey, you're absolutely," you know? There was a gentleman a little bit older than you are. He was a little bit older than me, named Joel Siegel. He was the ABC movie reviewer.
Mm-hmm.
My dad and I were sitting having lunch in Manhattan one day, and he walked in, and I said, "Hey, Dad, that's Joel Siegel. Check it out." Okay, you know. 5 minutes later, Joel Siegel, I guess, looked around. He saw me, and he came over to me, you know, and he even had some kind words, you know, to say to me. He had seen The Toy and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I always was going somewhere with somebody, you know. One of my best friends, you know, growing up, his name's Andy. He still lives back east. He lives in Easton, Pennsylvania, and he was my guy. He went everywhere with me. Whether it was to the movies, you know, to a ball game, I took him to wrestling matches with me. You know, he was my go-to. You know, we went, I sort of say I kidnapped him one time, but I really didn't.
Yeah.
You know, it was Thursday night, and I called him up and I said, "Hey, after school tomorrow, we're going to leave about 2:00. We're going to the airport. Pack something that's warm." It was December. He's like, "Where are we going?" I said, "Doesn't matter. We're going on a trip, dude. You coming with me? Just let's go." He's like, "Okay." And he packed a bag, and, you know, we got in the car and go to Newark Airport. And back then, again, it's known pre 9/11 and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking, you know, 86. And I took him to Chicago to see a Chicago Bears game. And we were staying at the hotel with all the Bears guys, with Walter Payton and Kevin Butler and Mike Singletary and Richard Dent and all those guys.
That's
you know,
cool.
Yeah, I had done a ABC after school special with Kevin Butler, and he's like, "Hey, you got to come to a game," you know. Okay.
Oh, sweet.
But I went to the game, but I made sure I always took my homie, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, I also read online in 2014 you became president of AMC. A minor consideration is what it stands for?
A minor consideration, right.
Which is for the protection of children in the entertainment industry, which has passed child labor laws in several states. Why is that so important to you? What made you want to get involved in that?
I was taught, first of all, and I say this, I had the world's greatest teacher. I had Richard Pryor. You know, crazy, insane, fun, this, that. I got the greatest part of Richard, the one that wanted to educate and share and tell me things. And he would always say, you know, don't have an ego. If you can try and help somebody, you help somebody. If you can educate somebody, educate somebody. Take the knowledge you've learned and pass it on. And I mean, as a group of child actors, we're, you know, I don't say we're all best friends, but we're in this little bowl together, you know. So we have our own little family of people. We don't all get along, but whatever the case may be. And it was just, you know, seeing us fall, seeing, Gary Coleman, Dana, Jonathan Brandis, River Phoenix. I got invited to go to, I didn't know it was a meeting for AMC, but I got invited to go to one of the gatherings of some former child stars. And there was like 30 of us there. And Paul Peterson, who was on the Donna Reed show, had started this thing years ago. And he was looking for somebody to be a mouthpiece, somebody who could talk, somebody who could, if there was a kid in need, whatever it was, you put yourself out there. And we had several chit-chats before that, and then I got invited to this thing, and then he kind of sprung it on me, hey, I'd like you to be the president,
Nice.
He'll always be the top dog because he's the one who started it, but, this is the position. Okay. I thought about it for a little bit, and then he and I had some talks, and then we ended up doing a radio show together, a 2-hour radio show, and after that was done, we sat outside, and I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Nice.
And, there's no pay. It's not about being famous. It's not about trying to publicize yourself. It's just helping kids, their parents make good decisions, the right decisions. Be informed of the things that the studios are not going to tell you.
Yeah.
Because they would like to, in any which way, take advantage of you for not knowing things that you should know.
Yeah.
Look out for good people and look out for bad people. I learned a lot of the different things that studios do and TV networks do to get around child labor laws and how they work kids and what they do. Everybody kind of knows, a kid can work 9 hours a day, including, 1 hour for lunch, 3 hours of school. They can be on a set for 5 hours. Okay, fine. They get around that not by working them on the set, but having them do promotional things afterwards. And there was a 12-year-old girl whose mother was concerned. She was running herself ragged, the kid. And I get a phone call, and they said, hey, you got to call this lady. So I called her up. Okay. And I said, listen, this is very simple. I said, you have to go to her and say, do you have kids? Well, of course, 99% has kids.
Yeah.
Would you want to put your kid in harm's way? Would you want to exhaust your child? Well, of course, the answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, just tell them, you got to cut back a little bit of the promo. We can't do 4 days a week. My kid's getting, grinded to the ground. Can we do 2 days a week? Maybe sometimes 3 days a week for a couple of hours or whatever it is. Just a little something so that she has a little more free time. Okay. And the lady went and had the conversation. The producer understood. No problem. There was no getting fired. There was no nonsense. And she called me back. She said, it worked wonders. I said, well, there you go.
You just got to ask.
Yeah. There's another kid. He was 15 on a series, boy. And, he's making good money. And all of a sudden he's hanging out with the bad crowd and he's smoking pot, drinking a little bit. And his mother's worried about him. So again, through the channel, I end up getting the phone call. Okay, fine. You got to call this nice lady. And I talked to the mother and I said, I'll come over. She lived 20 minutes from me. And of course, it helps that I am who I am. And I've done the things that I've done. And I've got, at the time when I started, it was like 38 years of experience or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
And I kind of told the mom what I wanted to do. And she was okay with that. And I took the kid out of the house and, I brought him to Sunset Boulevard. And we just took a little walk and we went by the Viper Room and we were right in front. I said, okay, stop. I went, okay. I said, do you know where you're standing? He's like, no. I said, well, this is a spot where River Phoenix passed away. Now, I didn't expect him to know who that was unless he did his homework and he liked actors, he liked kid actors. He's like, I don't know who that is. Okay. We talked a little bit more and I kind of explained who he was on the way home, on the way back to his house. I said, listen, I I don't care that I spent 2 or 3 hours with you. I could care less. I said, I want you to do me one favor. It's going to take you 3 minutes. I said, I want you to go to Google and Wikipedia, River Phoenix. I want you to read that story and understand you are in the same space he is. You're starting out here, then it's success, then it's drugs, then it's da-da-da-da-da. Now, there's 2 ways you can do this. There's the brick wall, that you hit and you stop and that's it and it's all over. Or you get on Route 66 and you go all the way across the country and it never ends. If you want to come back and go back, you can do this forever. You know, which career do you want, basically?
Wow.
You know, which was some of really what Richard Pryor actually had told me about the Route 66 thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, it was like 3 weeks later, his mom called me up and said, I don't know what you said to my kid, but he stopped seeing those people. He stopped doing, you know, pot. He stopped drinking. I explained it to him in the most easiest terms he could follow. This is you. You have the brass ring. Do you want to have a great life or do you want to hit the brick wall? Which one would you prefer? You know,
wow.
so I mean, that was.
Sounds like a great organization.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 501c3 and they do help change, you know, labor laws, and it's a minorconsideration.org, you know, and there's no profit. Nobody gets paid anything. You know, if money goes into the kitty, you know, somebody donates, it gets spent, you know, trying to put legislation through to help kids, you know, in show business in different ways. You know, there's the Coogan Act, which is a percentage of the kid's income goes into a savings account till they're 18. Nice. Realistically, it was made as a federal law, but most states don't enforce it because, God forbid, you got to open up another account and somebody's got to put money in there. Not the parents. It's got to come from production companies, you know, and it's like they don't all want to do it. It's like, come on, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, that's just one of the things. But I mean, it's, you know, kids in, whether it's singer, actor, dancer, musician, you know, any form of child entertainment, and the laws that they have for, you know, going to school, excused absences as opposed to non-excused absences. Well, we all know, if you got sick and you went to the doctor, you got a doctor's note. It's an excused absence. Okay, fine. If you get a Broadway show or an off-Broadway show or a touring company show, and you're going to be gone from school for 8 weeks, that to them is an unexcused absence. Even though you're getting educated on the set or, you know, wherever it is, every day you have to have 3 hours of schoolwork. So those were the laws that different states have different rules and all of that they're trying to make more comprehensive so that everybody kind of does the same thing to benefit a child. Yeah,
that's interesting. That's good. That's good stuff, man. Now, can we expect to see you in anything new here in the near future? I know COVID-19 kind of put things on hold, but anything that you're working on?
Sort of. I just did a show called The Quarantine Bunch, which is on YouTube. Wow.
Oh, cool.
And it was made for this. This is why they made it, the quarantine show. So we're all in our homes, and there's like, you know, 7 or 8 of us. You know, they're former child actors. And Jeremy Miller from Growing Pains, Dean McDermott from his Tori Spelling's husband. He's done shows for years since he was a kid. Keith Coogan from Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Judy Norton, who was on shows as a kid. Melissa Disney, who did shows as a kid, and she was actually one of the voices from the Academy Awards the last few years.
Nice.
Danny Pintaro from Who's the Boss. You know, it's quite a nice group of people, and we all kind of did this, you know, and they're not long episodes. There's like 8 episodes, and each of them are like 8 to 10 minutes long, something like that. I did that, and then I did a independent film that'll be coming out on video probably sometime later this year. I don't know what their distribution is when they're supposed to be coming out or whatever. But I try and stay busy, you know, when things were open, and now even not being open, we're still busy. Yeah,
that's really cool, man. I'll have to check out that show on YouTube. I'm gonna look that up tonight. Yeah, it sounds interesting. So, what's some advice you could give to someone wanting to pursue the acting or wanting to put their kid into the acting classes to start this career?
2 different questions. Big difference between, you know, if the person is an adult, I say, I hope you have an education first, get a job of some kind, and try acting. You know, it's very, very difficult to break in. Unless, of course, you're 20 years old and you're a great looking woman. Then you got much more of a shot than anything else.
Yeah.
You know, parents getting their kids in the show business, don't get snowballed, don't get run over. There's a lot of the independents that travel the country and they do these lessons and acting lessons and come to our, big meeting and you'll do this thing and it's thousands and thousands of dollars with no promise of any work at all. And maybe hopefully a casting agent will see you and all of that. 99% of that is all a ripoff. Has there been a kid at one time that came from there? Sure, of course.
Yeah.
But for the tens of thousands that have paid tens of thousands of dollars, they've got nothing in return.
Yeah.
If your child is an invert, is introverted, that's not the business for them. You have to be, an extrovert. You have to be out there. You got to be the kid at 5, 6, 7 who makes jokes or sings and dances and wonderful and okay and all that. Don't ever be in it for the fame and the money. Don't push your kid to push your kid. Let them be the one that says, I want to do this. I want to keep doing this. This is fun. This is okay. If you're one of the parents that push, and I've seen them, they push their kids, the kids are not going to walk into an audition with the smiley, bubbly face and doing the things that they need to do. They're going to go in upset, mom pushing, and I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. I want to be with my friends. Then why are you there?
Yeah.
So, there's always ways to talk to people. Again, if you go to anybody, the parents who want to get their kids in the business or want some advice, you can go to a minorconsideration.org, and ask away, and somebody will get a hold of you. I'm not the president anymore. You can only be the president for 2 years, So I no longer do that. But people, I still talk to everybody. Okay, fine. Just be smart.
Yeah.
If you think you're getting ripped off or cheated, you probably are. There are agents in New York, agents in Chicago and Orlando and Boston and Los Angeles and San Francisco. Especially with the advent of the internet, it's a great tool to have. You can ask people questions.
Yeah.
You find out who reps somebody, and you can't go out there and go, I'm going to email Scarlett Johansson and find out how she likes her agent. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You'll go to an agent's page and you'll see a bunch of people, and maybe there's somebody there that you may have seen. If you're picking out the most famous client they got, you're never going to hear back and you're never going to know anything. It's funny. One of the agents that I got when I moved to California, managers that I had, I asked her who some of her clients were, when we met. And she rifled off a whole bunch of names of people that a few I did know, a few I didn't know, whatever. And then she said the guy, Roddy Piper, Roddy Piper, he's a wrestler guy. She didn't know that I was a wrestling thing. I said, you rep Roddy Piper? She's like, yeah. I said, oh, okay. And we finished talking. I said, I'll let you know tomorrow, because we both kind of thought that we would be a good fit. But, I said, let me just sleep on it. She's like, okay, fine. And I had Roddy's phone number. So I called him up and I said, hey, what do you think about this lady? He's like, she's a nice lady. She's sweet. She's kind. She gets me out there when I can do things. Great. Okay, fine. So I called her back the next day. I said, listen, you got Roddy's approval, so you got mine. I said, I called him last night. She said, you know him? I said, I've known the guy. At the time, I knew him for like 15 years,
Yeah.
So
very cool.
Not everybody can do that, but,
Yeah.
That was my case.
Well, there's some advice for you all out there. And Scott, man, once again, I appreciate you sitting down with me, and we'll have to do it again sometime once this whole COVID stuff is over. We'll do it in person.
Whenever you want, Kendall. It's all good, brother.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming.
You got it. Listen, stay well and stay healthy. And anybody who sees us, stay well, stay healthy. Be smart. Don't be stupid. Do the right things. We're all going to be okay. Or a lot of us.
Yeah. Sounds good, brother. Appreciate it.
You got it. Take care.